Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is the Leadership and Management webinar series. We are here today with Eli Blair to discuss the ever important topic of leadership disrupted, new ways for the new normal. My name is Shannon McDonald. I am the Associate Director for Corporate Education and Custom Training at UC San Diego Extension. And again, welcome. We've got a great presentation ahead for you. Before we get started, I wanted to go over the agenda for today, and again, welcome. Our session is being recorded, so please take note of that, which means it'll also be available to you after today's presentation. So we will all those that are attending today, you'll actually receive a link in your inbox along with a copy of today's presentation and any additional resources that Eli will be providing. We'll also be posting this on our Leadership and Management Essentials page, which can be found at extension.ucsd.edu/levelup. So all of our webinars are posted there as well. Then we're going to talk about UC San Diego Extension just for a moment and the Corporate Education and Custom Training Department. That is the department that hosts this webinar series. Then we'll get started with our presentation with Eli Blair. And then we'll end today's presentation with a little bit of question and answer time. We're going to be doing that via the chat box, so please take advantage of the chat box today. We'll also be asking you a couple of other questions, so definitely want to utilize that function today. In addition, we'll be doing some polling to ask you some questions and keep the engagement high, so please do participate in that if you feel you would like to. All right. A little bit about UC San Diego Extension and Corporate Education and Custom Training. So who are we? Who is UC San Diego Extension? So we are the continuing education arm of UC San Diego. We focus on professional development and personal enrichment programs, primarily for adult professionals. We have 4,500 courses, 100 certificate programs, across various topics. So business, science, technology, healthcare, education, you name it, we probably got it. We've been around for almost as long as the university, about 55, 60 years. And so what we really do in these programs is focus on critical skill development and real world knowledge. So practical elements into the classroom. We really want you to learn today and apply tomorrow. And in order to do that, we call on experts in the field to teach our courses, so you do get that relevant, most real-world knowledge that's pertinent to these topics today. Corporate education. So our department here at UC San Diego Extension actually builds programs for our organizations from small to large. They are custom built to your needs, so we design, develop, and deliver on these programs on various topics. So anything from leadership, education, healthcare topics, business, technology, anything that your team is needing internally, we can develop that for you. I wanted to talk a little bit about our leadership programs today because that is what this webinar series is primarily talking about. So we have our Leadership and Management Essentials series. That is actually what this webinar series is a part of. We have short format offerings in this area to help professionals develop leadership and business acumen essentials across all industries. So again, these are short format, whether they're webinars or maybe 4-hour half-day workshops. Then we have our Leadership and Teamwork Certificate, which is a 3-course online certificate program for the emerging leader, really focusing in on leadership, teamwork, and project management topics. The first course actually is taught by Eli Blair, and I'll explain a little bit more later in the presentation about that course if you are interested. Then we have our Leadership and Management Program, LAMP, which is a 5-month program designed for primarily mid-level professionals. And then we have our Executive Perspective for Scientists and Engineers, EPSI program, which is a 9-month executive leadership program for primarily senior level professionals. Those latter 2 programs have been around for over 30 years, and the applications for those programs are now open. And you can find out more at extension.ucsd.edu/custom programs. And finally, our webinar series, this is Leadership Disrupted today, as I mentioned. We have 3 more lined up for the month of July, and we'll be adding more for August, September, and later half of 2020 very, very soon. And again, as I mentioned, our past webinars are posted at this location. Okay, now on with the show. I'm going to turn it over to Eli Blair for Leadership Disrupted, New Ways for the New Normal. Take it away, Eli.
All right. Hello, everybody. Glad to have you with me today. I'm going to come over to my screen for a quick moment and get this all set up. So give me one moment. All right. So welcome. Glad to have you here with us today. So again, my name is Eli Blair, and Leadership Disrupted. What is that? Why are we doing this? Why have this conversation? So I'm going to start off with something. Remember back, take us back, years ago, Airbnb came on the scene. They disrupted everything when it came to accommodations and vacations. Think about the time years ago when Uber came on the scene. Ride sharing, what's ride sharing? What is that? And now that's the way we think about when we're traveling. Taxis, pretty much we're all using Uber and Lyft these days. So when I think about what's going on right now in the universe with COVID-19, I think leadership in business, as we have done in the past, what was happening 6 months ago will never be that way again. So with that, what am I going to talk about today? So first we'll do a quick welcome, and then I'm going to talk about the state of the business today. Where are we in the universe? What's going on here in the United States? Then we're going to talk about the harder work of leadership. Because friends, I actually believe leading remote work teams is harder than leading teams in an office setting. And then we're going to talk about some next steps today. So first things first, I know we have a lot of people on the call today. I wanted to see where everybody's from. So in your chat box, if you would, let me know what city or state you're calling in from. And I would love to just see where everybody is today. So we'll take just a quick few seconds.
Ooh, Minnesota.
We got Minnesota. Wow.
San Diego, UC San Diego, Argentina. That's cool.
Well, welcome from overseas. That's exciting.
Andover, Massachusetts.
Got some East Coasters. Hello, East Coast.
LA.
East Coast. Yep. So if you're calling in from East Coast or here on the West Coast, I'm actually sitting today in lovely Palm Springs where it's 108 degrees. Don't be jealous.
Cold. It's cold.
All right, so we have people calling in from all over. Thank you guys so much for joining me. First off, Eli Blair, who is this guy in front of you? Who is that guy in that floral print on your screen? So as for me, as Shannon said, I'm an executive business coach. I've been coaching now for about 10 years. I do leadership development training nationally and develop courses. Like Shannon said, I'm going to be leading a course next month here at UC San Diego. And I have been around for a bit. Before becoming a coach, I owned my own marketing and design business, and that was pretty successful. And then before that, I was a chief operating officer of 2 publishing companies. So I bring in some perspective that I hope I can share with you today. During this webinar, please do me a favor, take some notes, grab a piece of paper, grab a pen, open a new tab on your computer, because I do want you coming out with some things and some thoughts and some ideas to consider as we continue on in this new realm of leadership. As Shannon mentioned, we will do some questions and polls as we go on. So please, we definitely want this to be interactive. I don't want to be a talking head for the next hour. So please, hopefully we can ask you to fill out some poll questions and that we keep you engaged. Also, please know this is an hour webinar. I'm not going to be able to solve all the world problems today, even though I wish I could. But the realization is I'm going to cover some things that I think will be helpful for you and your teams as we move forward in the months and years to come. Lastly, please note that we will provide you with a slide deck later, and I have an extra bonus for you with some tips and sheets and some action plan things for your consideration that we'll send to you after today's webinar. All right, so with that said, I'm going to start off with one question. We're going to start our first poll. And the first question is, how many of you are actually in management or leadership roles? So if you would you let us know? So as we're seeing,
Lots of yeses, lots of yeses.
Lots of people managing people in the universe, yes. We're seeing about 84% people still responding. We'll give it just a few more seconds. who are in leadership roles? Okay, so more and more people answering. Yeah. So here's the thing. I know as we're looking at the poll, 16, 17% of you are not in leadership roles. That's fine. I actually think some of the stuff we're going to talk about today, you can bring back to your teams. That'll be helpful for you and your business as well, including your professional development. Okay. Anything else? All right. So I'm going to stop sharing. And can we share those results, Shannon?
I did.
Okay, great. And let's go on to the next question.
Okay.
And the next question is, how many of you have been greatly impacted by this virus? Not personally, we know everyone's personally, professionally. What are we seeing?
Lots of yeses.
Yeah, and of course, as we're seeing people coming in on the poll, we've got about 70 people who've responded so far, and we're still seeing more. Yeah, so it's an 80-20 mix, right? And of course, it's not shocking. And yeah, so I'm going to end that poll.
I got it. I've already shared it.
Awesome. And I take this off of my screen. All right. So as we continue on, let me just say this. If anybody has not told you this, I will tell you this. I honor you. And I honor you because nobody 5 months, 6 months ago could have seen this coming along. And probably the work and the dedication and the time and the mental cost and all of this has been big. So let me just say, I honor you in all that you've been doing for you, yourself, your company, your families. So just know that as we go into this, this is a lot of uncharted territory. Okay. So here are the facts as we know it today. I didn't check the numbers, but at last count, there were over like 35 or 40 million people unemployed here in the US. That's crazy. We've never seen anything like that before. Many businesses have dropped revenues all the way down to 100%. All of you know businesses that are closing. Most businesses have been affected in one way or another. In the past, we know people have worked remote. I know before I used to work remote a few days a week, but we haven't really worked a lot with complete teams working remotely 100% of the time. For many, not all, this is new. And then when I was developing this workshop, I was talking to Shannon, and we started talking about this about 6 weeks ago. And for the most part, we were talking about it was like all doom and gloom. And she said, Eli, that's not true. Some businesses are growing exponentially during this time, and workforces have had to scale. So some great examples. In San Diego, there's a lot of biotech companies. They have grown. I have a leader who I'm coaching at a mortgage company. And what's really interesting about that, she goes, we have had to hire so many people to do processing of these loans. We can't keep up. Why? Because so many people right now are refinancing. I talked to this guy in the plumbing industry, and they make sensorless faucets and toilets. And they do a lot of work in LA. They can't keep up with the demand. So on one side, we see all these businesses who have gone remote, people losing their jobs. And on the other side, we're seeing businesses exploding. So I'm going to sort of address both of these today. Folks, I believe we are in a 10.0 earthquake. Shake, 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 shake. We are in a 10.0 earthquake. We're in it. And unfortunately, I do not believe we know what all the aftershocks are going to look like. We are in this earthquake. When this first happened, I kept hearing of businesses closing and things changing. 3 months in, going into 4 months, I'm still hearing businesses closing, businesses changing, businesses growing. So when we think about leadership, what's it going to look like? Because I actually do think this is going to be the new norm. I think the way of how we used to do business will not look the same moving forward. So check this out. This is a 2016 Gallup poll. 68% of US employees are not engaged in the work. Half of the nation's working remote people not engaged. And the financial cost to this, $550 billion annually. And this was in 2016, right? How is this going to show up in 2020 as we are in June 2020? What does it look like? So when we think about employees and what they might feel like, I don't know about you, but I have heard that most people feel like they're on a remote island. They're at their home, whereas once they had people who they used to work with, now they get up at a certain point, they hop on their desktop, their laptops, they go, meeting, work, and they're feeling disengaged and not connected. People feel out of the loop, whereas once you were in an office, we knew what was sort of going on. People don't know what's happening right now. Teams are changing, work is changing, growing, decreasing, all of that is happening. The other thing is we're only seeing people in meetings right now. How many of you feel that? I would imagine there's a lot of head shaking right now that you work, meeting, child, children, dog, pet, meeting, work. So people are only seeing those other friends in meetings. People's work-life balance is messed up, right? Many of you might be parents out there. Now you have your kids out for summer. Now what? One of my friends in San Francisco, she works for the city and county. She now just moved from working 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. Why? So she can spend the afternoons with her daughter. That means she has to get up at 4 o'clock every day for work. The other day, I met a woman. She has triplets, 9-year-old triplets, single mother working. What's that work-life balance? People's work-life balance, people starting at 8, and I hear them not shutting down till 8 or 9 at night. And then I hear the converse, that people can't figure it out and get engaged, and they lack the motivation to start on time. And then the other thing, reciprocally, for the growing companies, people are hiring exponentially. That mortgage company, I know one of my tech companies that I work with, they're growing exponentially, and people are feeling lost in the shuffle. So as a leader, what might you need to do to keep your remote workforce engaged as well as productive? So there's a psychologist, he does the 4 stages of group development. His name is Bruce Tuckman, and he talks about these 4 stages of team dynamics. It's talking about forming, storming, norming, and performing. And some of you may have heard of this, and this will be a refresh. Others, this might be new. But when we talk about forming, that's when something new happens. Somebody has left the team. Somebody has joined the team. Maybe there's been a reorg. Maybe there's been a coronavirus and everybody's had to go work remote. Something new, something different has happened within a team or within an organization. When we think about the storming phase, this is us just getting used to it, getting a feel. What's working? Where are we butting heads? What's working? Where are we connecting? What's happening? Tensions rise. We're sort of getting a feel for it. Then we talk about the norming stage. Things start getting smoother. People start getting the idea. And then we talk about the performing side. And this is where we work like a well-oiled machine. One of my clients is a VP at an insurance company. She has 10 people who are direct reports, and they've all been working together for about 14 or 15 years. For her, that's a performing team. Typically though, for most organizations, most people fall between forming, storming, and then norming, but mostly within the first 2, because there's always changes. There's a new process, somebody leaves, reorg, all of that. So I'm gonna go into our next poll question. Maybe I am. And here it is. In your organization today, where are you guys? Are you informing, storming, norming, or performing? What do you guys think within your own organization? And numbers are coming in. Yeah, please definitely respond. We definitely would love to get your input. And so we're seeing more people in storming, some in norming, which is great to see. Some in performing. We'll give it another few moments. Definitely respond. So definitely storming and norming. Interesting. I would have thought, Shan, what?
No, I was saying, yeah, storming and norming primarily.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would have thought that norming wouldn't have had such a higher number, but that's great to see that people are getting used to it. But I definitely think when we look at it, and it's equal with 31%, which is great. Okay.
Those results with everybody.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So let me get back in. So let's talk about some recommendations I have for the new norm. And so when we look at things, let's talk about one-on-one meetings. First, I believe leaders should be meeting with their team members at least once a week. I know in the past, I've heard many of my clients, well, I meet with my team once every other week. We meet for 20 or 30 minutes. With this new norm, with people working with remotely, feeling like they're out on an island, I definitely recommend meeting at least once a week. I think we're forgetting about the human component a lot. I hear that often from my clients. We talk about, what's happening on this project, what's going on with this project, what are you doing here? But I think we need to be engaging our people more. What's going on with them? How are they doing? How are they doing with their work-life balance? What's showing up? How are their families? How are their pets? What have been their wins this week at work? What are their challenges? What kind of support do they need? We need to bring in that human factor even more now. Like I said, leadership remote takes more work. It does. For those of you who are growing exponentially or just growing in general, a couple of things. I think onboarding needs to change for remote teams. The way we used to do onboarding for people who are coming into the companies needs to maybe maybe be revisited and looked at once again. For expanding people, I'll tell you something. I have a client who I'm working with, and they hired a new director. They gave him 20 videos to watch, gave him something to read, and said, off you go. And you can imagine he has not had the opportunity to work with the team. The team has not had the opportunity to work with him, and they're butting heads. And for the last 30 days, it has not been pretty. So onboarding might need to take on a new form and looking at what that might look like for new people. And the old ways of onboarding, are they still working for you when it comes to bringing in new members? Here's a big one. I think, when possible, is there a way to be more transparent with your teams? Again, when you work in an office, you sort of get an idea. You see people going in and out of meetings. You see leaders talking to each other. You sort of get an idea of what's happening within the organization. I remember that at my last company, the owner came up to us at one point and was really transparent and said, we're $3 million in the hole. Okay, I got that. We all got that. We needed to do a deep dive. We had to make changes. It was transparent. Now, more than ever, with teams working remotely, if you can be more transparent, hey guys, we're bringing on another 10 people. We're behind. Our work is increased by 22%. Hey friends, I want to let you know, our revenue is down by 40%. We're going to have a 15% cut. What are some of the new decisions? Are there new processes that are being developed? How can we be more transparent? When we're looking at remote leadership, we need to maybe look at and revisit expectations in communication. So for an example, what are some of the expectations that need to be set or reset with your team? For example, I'll use the word Slack today, but I know there's a lot of instant messaging platforms that many of you are on, but I'm going to use Slack as the predominant example. But I remember when I went full-time remote, my manager said to me, she goes, Eli, you want to work remote? No problem. If I send you a Slack, you better respond in 2 hours. I'm like, got it, right? The expectation was set. What is your expectations that need to be set or reset? How do your meetings look, right? How do your stand-ups look? How do you want emails to look now? I had a manager who I used to work with. She was very relationship oriented. She liked a lot of details. She left, I got a new manager. She was very transactional. Just give me the bullet points. I don't have time. What works for you? How are you setting those expectations? How do you want your teams to communicate with you right now? What's working, what's not? What are the new or reset expectations you might need to do for your clients, other stakeholders? What might that look like for internal and external? And lastly, what processes need to be changed now that we're in it? As we said, many of you are in the storming phase, and these phases, where are you in respect to, are all these processes working? Now that we're here, what might need to be revisited? We're going to move on to meetings and instant messaging, okay? So I'm a little bit of a hardliner when it comes to online virtual meetings. And for me, I sort of view it as the idea that if you're in a virtual meeting, it's just like being in a conference room. So for me, I recommend cameras on. I recommend cameras on because I don't know about you, when I'm not on camera and all of a sudden a text message comes in, I'm looking at that. Or I might be writing an email to somebody, and here's my thought. If you're slacking, you're slacking. If you're texting, you're texting. If you're in a meeting, you're in a meeting. Whenever I teach a class, I let them know right at the top. I said, hey friends, I want to let you know, all cameras on, and please know, I might call on you at any point. I want people engaged. It's just like being in a conference room. Nothing changes here. So I think, and of course, it's a personal decision. I know a lot of people say like, oh, I don't care if their cameras are on or off. That's up to you. My recommendation is for engagement, all cameras on, and let them know I might check in with you. Next, what's your policy about IMs? Is it okay to IM all day? Are there expectations? What is the certain time frames? So I don't know about you, but when I think about an instant message, when I think about a slap, to me, that's like knock, 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 knock at my door. Hey, Eli, I have a question. Knock, knock, knock. Hey, Eli, I have a question. Can I come in? I have a question. And for me, that's an interruption of my work. And I think back to the old days. I'm going to take us back to old days when people were on phone all the time. And people said, I can't keep answering all these phones. And they'd leave a voicemail message. I only check messages at 11 and 4. So when I say this regarding meetings and instant messaging, might you need to turn off Slack and let people know that? Set your away button. Look, I have to get work done. I only am going to be able to get Slack every few hours. What works for you? How do you want your meetings to look like? So right now, take a moment. You can put some of this in our chat box, or you can take some notes. What might you need to consider to look at and maybe differently when it comes to your one-on-one meetings or helping out your remote teams? How might you want to add on the human component a little bit more? How are you going to get a better pulse of what your team are? And are there any expectations regarding policy? One of the other things, and the reason I have number 3 is for many companies have mission value props. And now that we're fully remote, how does that look? Does that still hold? Do those mission and value statements still work, or do things need to shift? So Shannon, is there anything coming up in text, in chat?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Nope, I don't see anything at the moment, but please
Okay.
encourage you to participate if you'd like.
Yeah, if you want to put something, like one of the things you might want to consider doing when it comes to one-on-one meetings or any of that. So we're going to move on. All right. So now I want to talk a little bit about employee engagement. And it's really interesting. Yesterday, in just yesterday's New York Times, there was an interesting article, and it talked about productivity versus engagement. And not a surprise to me, maybe to you, productivity for many companies is going up. And I sort of get that. People are behind their laptops earlier, they're working harder, they're working longer. But already, we're seeing engagement going down. Again, we look at that Gallup poll from a few years ago, we see that. So my first question, we're going to do another poll. It would be great if everybody responded. How many of you are not feeling as engaged with your company as you were 6 months ago? Where are you at today? How many of you are not feeling as engaged with your company as maybe you were 6 months ago?
Ooh, 50-50.
Interesting. Some of you are still feeling really well engaged. Oh, numbers are shifting a little. So 50% of you feel like your feeling still is engaged. Great, but 40% is still a high number. when we look
Eli?
at the overall picture?
Eli, question. What do you mean by engaged?
Yeah, so what do I mean by engaged with the organization? How many of you feel like you're on remote islands, that all you're doing is seeing people in meetings, your anxiety level is high, it's just work, 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 and that you're not feeling connection as you did in the past? So that's what I mean by engaged. Great question. Okay, so seeing about 60% still feeling good, but 40% still is a high number. So then I'm going to ask our next question. How many of you feel your and do we need to shift anything, Shannon, here? There we are.
I'm on it.
Okay. Awesome. How many of you feel your employees are not as engaged with you and the organization as they were 6 months ago? What do you guys think? So a little bit of a mixed number here.
60-40, noted.
Yeah. And we're looking at about 55%, 40%, and sort of almost like a half mix. Again, high numbers for organizations, right? Anybody else? Wow, we just hit 50-50. That's interesting.
Oh,
Wow, that's a rarity in a poll that we hit 50-50. All right, awesome. So moving forward, I'm going to give you some ideas on engagement activities that I think might be helpful to you. I know many of you have a lot of ideas. I'm just going to throw some out there. So when we think about employee engagement, maybe begin some special Slack channels. You know, lots is going on. I know at my last organization, we had very specialized channels. You know, right now, employee resource groups, we all know that there's huge conversations going on in the national dialogue about Black Lives Matter. People want to feel engaged. At the corporate level, we're feeling that as well. So maybe creating some new channels to bring engagement and conversation in. Maybe, I know a lot of you are doing happy hours and that's awesome, but maybe come up with some other creative ideas. Dress up Fridays. Everybody gets dressed up head to toe and people have to stand so you get out of those sweatpants and shorts. Maybe create something like Homemade Lunch Tuesdays, where basically everybody shows what we made for lunch. Maybe do a morning stand-up. We talked about some people really need more structure, and a lot of teams need a lot of structure. So maybe you start off each morning, everybody gets online at 8:30, and maybe everybody talks about one win from the day before and one big challenge they have for the day coming up. And if you are a leader, have your team members lead the meeting. You don't have to do everything. Delegate this out, but it's a great way to bring people in and a great way to start the day. Some other ideas, bring your team in, see what they do, and assign it out to them. Let your team come up with ideas like, all right, hey Sue, hey Pat, next week I want you guys to come up with something that we'll all do that'll be fun for next Friday. Let them do some of the work, have someone else engage in creating the ideas. I love this one. This is sort of new for me, and one of my coaching friends was talking to me about this. Two things. One is office hours and one is office time. So one of the things I'm hearing is a leader is telling his team or her team that, hey guys, I'm in a Zoom room. I'll be there from 2 to 4. If you want to stop over, come on in. These are my office hours. So people can just stop by and say hi. The other thing I really love, and this is new for me and I love it, and I hope you do too, it's called office time. I know we're not working in our own environments anymore, but that doesn't mean we can't be together. So office time is designated time, tell me what you think, designated time where maybe everybody gets together in a virtual room, maybe it's 1 to 4, everybody's audio is off, but we're all working together, we're in the same space again. And if people have questions, they can just come off of mute, but everybody is in the same space again. Just a thought, I really love that idea. And the next one I have is called donut.com. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. I've worked with them in the past. I think they're a great site. What they do is, let's say it's Shannon and I, they'll say, hey, Shannon and you are gonna meet for coffee this week, set up a time, get together. And then they'll do a reminder notices, and then they'll do follow-ups. And it's just automated, it's a great site, and it helps people to get together, to have coffee, and to chat, and to connect better. All right. So as we move on, as we might move on, I'm having a little bit of, there we go. Is this looking, Shannon, are we having connection problems?
Oh, there it goes. Oh, now it just went away again.
Okay.
There it goes.
Can we see it or not? Because otherwise I'll just come up with a
You got it. I
so
see it.
Can you see that? All right. So folks, here's the other thing. When we look at engagement surveys from companies, even before all this, the number one thing that we saw that people had a need and a want for within organizations is professional development. That is what we have always seen mostly in the top 2 to 3 things that people want more of. And even though we are now remote, that doesn't mean professional development stops. So what do we need to do to continue to help our teams with their professional development? You know, do they want more training? Are there virtual classes they can take? Do they need to be working with people within the organization? I have a strange connection here, Shannon. Is it coming across okay to you?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, I do want to ask our audience, is anybody else having difficulties with connection? I just want to double check. Yes, no?
No problems, somebody said.
Okay, it's just on my end.
No problems.
Of course, when you're doing a webinar, it's just on the speaker's end, of course.
You're good.
So anyway, professional development doesn't stop here. And here's the other thing. Professional development from a good leadership perspective needs to be calendared in. So if I said, all right, you want to take a JavaScript class or a SQL class, great. Let's calendar in when you're going to do that. Or if you want to learn more about HR, I'm going to have you sit in with this person starting on Tuesday. So professional development and engagement, we still need to be working on that even during these times. Okay? All right.
It must have been the heat in Palm Springs eating up.
I think it is because I can't see anything. So right now, I gave you some ideas regarding employee engagement and some things for professional development. On the side sheet, what might you need to add or do more of? And if you want to put some of that in the chat box, that would be great as well. Anything you want to do more for employee engagement with your team? Professional development, what needs to continue do more of? What do you guys think? Anything coming in, Chen?
I think they're typing. Here's one. Disney Institute is offering online programs for $99 until June 30th. I'm taking Disney's approach to customer service.
Love it, right? Professional development. And there are some, I mean, right now, especially during this time, there's a lot of low cost and no cost programs helping people with their professional development. 32 million.
You said the ideas about social connection are helpful.
Yeah, people need to be connecting in with their organizations. People are talking business, they're not talking human component. Okay.
edX has free online courses from Ivy Leagues, one-on-one weekly huddles with staff to check in. People need the technology. I like the fun ideas. Continue sending mindfulness/fun links.
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots out there, but we just, as leaders, how do we bring them more into our work every day? Okay. I'm going to go on to our next slide. And on one side of the slide, you will see a mouse in a maze. And on the other side, you will see an eagle soaring above. And I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. Why did I put that image up? So for many of us as leaders, and I've been a coach and I've done leadership training for years, I find a lot of leaders are like a mouse in a maze, especially now. Oh my God, I have to answer that Slack. I have this project to work on. I have to talk to these people. I have this meeting going on. I have all this craziness going on. They're a mouse in a maze bouncing into a wall. And what I don't see enough of, and many of you might be doing this and many not, is being the eagle looking from above and taking the time to look at bigger picture strategy. So when I think about good leadership, especially now, especially with what's going on in the world and companies and the way they do process changing a mile a minute, whether you've gone remote or your company is increasing, whatever, I think leaders need to take the time to step back and to be the eagle soaring above and looking at the bigger picture. So for an example, any one of my clients, I ask them to create a block on their calendar once a week, twice a week, whatever works. That is a 2 to 3 hour block of time, and that is a non-negotiable block of time that is for you to do big picture strategy, being the eagle from above. I worked with the manager every Tuesday and Thursday, 8 to 10. You could not schedule in a meeting with him. And one of the oppositions I hear is like, well, my manager might want to meet with me during that time. I think if you're able to say, hey, look, I've got something on my calendar at that time, can we meet at 4? These blocks of time are non-negotiable to look at the bigger picture. One of the questions I just see is, what will we do during that time? It's time to look at the bigger picture. What do I mean? What's coming down the pike? What needs to change? What processes need to be looked at? What policies might need to be changing? What happens if we are being sent back and we hit a second wave and everything shuts down again? How does that affect your business growth or decline? What do we need to look at from a marketing perspective? What do we need to look at from a human capital perspective? It's that time not to get work done, but to look at the broader spectrum of things. I've done this for years. I have never heard any leader tell me like, oh my God, that was a waste of my time. I don't usually hear that. Typically what I hear is people are able to sit back and breathe, right? And by the way, this non-negotiable block of time, it's for your sanity to sit back and breathe. It is the benefit of your team, and it's for the benefit of your organization as well. The last thing I'll mention about this as well is if you are not taking lunch every day, you're doing yourself a disservice. Let me give you an example. I am the mouse in the maze at times. I'm not going to kid you, I am. And I have a little dog, and every day at noon, I have to take that little dog out for either a half an hour or an hour walk. And for me, just getting out of this environment, I'm able to come back in the afternoon and say, like, all right, I need to move on. I've been sitting there in a mouse in a maze for the last 4 hours. I need to change focus. I need to shift. And I need that mental break. And I believe every leader does. I think everybody does, no matter what your position is. And I think if you are working from home, wherever space you're in, if you're working in the living room or if you're working in the bedroom, to move out. And I've actually had people working in the bathroom because they live in little studios with 2 people. I've seen crazy stuff.
Gotta find your private moment.
Whatever you can do, right? It's work-life balance, whatever we can do. But during this time, change your space. Get out for a half an hour, 1 hour. I know it's COVID-19. If you can go around the block, put on a mask, walk around the block or in the neighborhood for an hour, half an hour, come back refreshed. Tell me how that works for you, because pretty much, again, we get to make a choice of how much we want to be the mouse in the maze, or if we want to come back refreshed to look at the broader picture, okay? So with that said, how are we doing on, oh, wow, all right. So we are at 45 minutes to the hour, and I definitely want to make sure I get you on time. A couple of things. First off, as we finish up here, and we will do some Q&A in just a few moments, but as we finish up here, you know, folks, this time in our world, we've never seen it. We know this. We've heard it 100 times, but I think, and I'm just going to use this and throw this out, I believe 90% of people, not everybody, but most people are doing the best they can under these circumstances. 5 months ago, nobody had ever thought I'd have to work at home with kids or work in my studio apartment with my dog and my cat, and that I wouldn't be able to see my teams. I think everybody's doing the best they can. I think we have to honor that and just keep up the fight, because it is going to be changing. And if you are one of those organizations that will have 100% people going back in the office, that's great. But just, I think most organizations are not going to be like that. You know, I work in tech a lot. Twitter has now told their people they don't have to come back. We look at Salesforce, we look at Zillow, we look at other major corporate companies that say, you don't have to come back for the rest of the year. Leadership has been disrupted, and it will continue to be disrupted as we continue to feel these aftershocks. So please, you know, honor yourself during this time. Everybody's working in a new norm, and we're all trying to figure this out together. So with that, Shannon, you know, let's do some time for some Q&A. So folks,
I already had a couple questions type in, but
awesome.
encourage more people to type their questions in, but I'll start off here. It says, here's a challenge. Technology seems to work better sometimes when cameras are off. Do you have strategies for that?
Yeah, it depends on the team. And you're right. Sometimes in your individual organizations, and depending on where you live, your technology is not going to be up. And in those cases, I think it's going to have to be a case by case. Because yeah, if you're on a dial-up mode or something a little slower, yeah, working on a video is going to take more time. So I think it has to be a case by case. But my thought is whenever possible, if the technology allows, to work on video.
Yeah. Here was a comment, and I thought this was kind of fun. At our company, we hold a Monday morning coffee to start the week and end the week with a Friday afternoon cocktail party to wrap up the week. It helps us connect on a more personal level and not just talking about business. I thought that was a really great
I
point.
love that. I love that people are doing things at the beginning and end of the week. But here's the other thing I would say. That's 2 hours a week. How do we feel connected on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday? Just something to consider. But I love that we're doing stuff. And there's, I think, other ways that we can add to that too. Love it.
Another comment was, I've noticed the need to revisit norms more frequently than before the pandemic. We initially set strong expectations and norms, but now that we're a few months in, folks are in a different headspace and we may need to level set again.
Yeah, and that comes, and I love that, you know, expectations and norms. Again, the question, what needs to be set or what might need to be reset at this time? Things shift. People have different work, you know, is it okay for people to work all crazy hours or do you want them there from 8 to 5 or whatever that looks like? And that might not be possible today. So what does that look like? And you're right, new norms, new times, what needs to be re-examined and re-examined.
Right. Yeah, somebody said, I think it's important for leaders and workforce to have better technological education and to understand that digital interruptions happen.
Yeah, again, new territory. There are digital interruptions and technology. And just because I have really great speeds here and great technology, don't forget that many people worked in the office and they had everything there. And now coming home, they're just trying to catch up right now. Yeah, absolutely.
Here's a fun idea. We have a water cooler channel on Microsoft Teams.
Love it. People are talking about what's going on, what's on, you know, what's going on. You know,
I miss the water cooler.
You know, it's funny because we're thinking about sports, and I think the only sports that's going on right now is golf, and I think baseball is coming back, as I heard this morning. So
sure.
Thank God we have something to talk about again.
My boss implemented daily check-in Zoom meetings, which seem nice on paper, but they are often filled with silence or small talk due to a lack of an agenda. Any tips for how to address this? I think it's more efficient to have fewer meetings with a specific agenda with a room for smaller group calls.
Yep, I love that. You know, how do we have meetings? So a great idea that I work with a lot of my clients with is the 2-day rule, that before you have any meeting with your boss, that you come up with an agenda. Why do I say that? 2-day rule. 1, maybe there are things you just don't need to talk about. You can get through email or Slack and get those responses. 2, if there are any contentious issues that are happening, it gives a heads up to your leader. And 3, giving your leader a heads up about what you want to discuss. They might need time to gather information. So I think coming into a meeting blind isn't as helpful. If you want, I think having an agenda is a really good practice to have for all organizations. And I think you can also do quick check-ins too, like what are some of your challenges? What's been working for you, working remote? What kind of support do I need? And I don't think there's anything wrong to also say like, hey, I love our meetings, but I think we could go down to 2 days a week. What do you think? In giving perspective. Just some thoughts around that. But again, I love the 2-day rule for meetings. Whether you're meeting with your manager or your team member is meeting with you, come in with an agenda. Time is our #1 commodity, my friends, especially now.
There are times when individuals, we seem to take turns, go into an emotional slump. It's totally understandable. How do we handle this on a professional basis?
So emotional slumps, you know, it's really interesting you bring that up. I think it's natural. I think it's happening more and more. I think now that we're 90, 120 days in, it's really interesting. I talked to a CEO the other day, he goes, I'm at my wit's end. I'm at my wit's end. He goes, it is meeting, concern, fear, COVID, Black Lives Matter, all this stuff that's bubbling up and people are coming in ready to fight. And here's why I say it, I think it's normal. I think we have to honor people when we look at emotional intelligence. Not every day is going to be a day of unicorns and rainbows. And I think we have to look at that and say, like, yeah, this is time. This is a day where it's not a happy day and that we have to work together. You know, how can I help support you during this time?
Yeah, we do. You know, on one of our team meetings during the week, we ask what we're grateful for at the end of the week. Also can help turn a perspective around, right? So you might be feeling kind of low, but you know, reminding yourself what you're grateful for is also helpful.
Yeah.
Let's see. When working from home, this is a comment, it looks like. When working from home, it's important to set expectations that employees don't have to work outside of normal hours. So easy to slip into work mode when it's right in the home and tasks are many.
Yeah, I agree with that. And again, each company is different. So if you're okay with people working different hours and working at different times, that's great. I also think there's a lot of companies that have people working in different time zones. So it's sort of like, how do we work together and collaborate? If somebody's working overseas, you know, what hours can I actually talk to you and, you know, communicate with you? So I think every company, you know, has to set that expectation. But I agree with you. It all depends on the company.
There is a contribution to that water cooler channel. They also share recipes, who's watching what on Netflix, etc. So that's always fun to do too.
Love it. You know, another way to engage, absolutely keep people engaged in conversation besides just work. Love it. I know that in my last job, we had a pet channel and, you know, I'm like, really a pet channel? But of course, who's the one who put his dog up all the time? Of course. Me. Love that. Here's my dog, you know, with a skirt on. Oh my God.
We love it. Somebody asked, how is everyone balancing Zoom overload? Maybe there's some comments behind this question from the group.
Yeah.
How do you address that?
It is Zoom overload, more than we've ever seen. And I think from what I'm reading about all of this, there's a cost that's coming from all these Zoom meetings and Zoom meetings. It's actually funny. I was telling Shannon, I also teach a course on executive presence, you know, presentation skills, especially on Zoom. And before I used to do this course in person in a conference room. And now we do this all online and it takes more energy. I'm wiped out at the end of a day from all being on Zoom and looking at camera all day. And you're right, it is exhausting. And the only thing I might say is two things. One, is every meeting necessary? Ask the question, what would happen if we didn't meet? And the second one is, which I always love hearing, is you can't have a meeting unless you're standing up. You have to stand for your meetings completely. Hold your laptop, stand, because that way your meetings will go a lot quicker and will be a lot more focused. So some things for consideration.
Yeah, somebody said reserve on your calendar at least some daily Zoom-free work time. Don't be afraid to label it.
Again, and I love that. That comes from setting and blocking time. Folks, do not think for a moment that when I'm on a huge project, that I am not putting on my calendar from 2 to 5, that time is blocked. And I turn off all instant messaging, I turn off email, I turn off phone, and that's work time. And I think we need that, especially now. That's one.
I have one more. A challenge I see with partners is that they lack the technology at home. Any suggestions?
Yeah, I think a couple things. If they don't have the technology, are you open to going to phone? Because I think, you know, we don't always have to see each other. I had a client yesterday and the technology was just driving me batty and he kept freezing. Like my technology right now is driving me batty. But I said, let's go to the phone. I know what you look like. Let's just talk. And so I think we have to accept that everybody is at different technology. Hey, look, I'm in Palm Springs and sometimes the technology here is not great. I have fast speed, but there's interruptions. So I think it's all really lovely. It's not perfect right now. So with that said, a couple things to finalize before I turn it back over to Shannon. Look, I'm a business coach. I do leadership training. Shannon runs this program at UC San Diego Extension. let me just say that we're here to support you. And if we can help you in any way, please reach out to us. My email is eli@eliblair.com. Shannon's going to give you hers. Our goal for me, my purpose, and I know Shannon, I'm pretty sure is the same way, we want to help people succeed. And we want to be there to help support you, especially during this time. So definitely reach out to us. We would love to
absolutely.
And Shannon, I'll turn it over to you to finish up.
Yeah, it's part of the reason why we put together this webinar series, right? Was to help leaders, managers, whomever, to again give them some leadership and management advice during this time. And I hope you continue to join us moving forward. I think one of the topics that we were talking about today is high EQ. You know, it was those who are struggling emotionally. How do as leaders do we address that? Well, emotional intelligence is really important. We have a topic coming up on that as well. So as one of our webinars, because we know that it's important to address all these feelings that we are feeling, you know, during this time. So do stay tuned for that in the webinar series. We had a couple more questions. We don't have time today, I really am sorry, but again, as Eli said, please email him or myself and we can address those for you if you want to ask us anything personally. I just wanted to remind you, Eli is teaching a course starting in July. It's called Leadership and Teamwork in the Workplace, very, very relevant for today. It is on Wednesdays, July 15th through September 16th from 5 to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. This will be conducted via Zoom. I am sorry for those of you going through Zoom fatigue, but I promise we'll make it fun and engaging. So it is a live online format. This will have a lot of wonderful participation with all group members. Eli, anything you want to add to?
Yeah, so what's really interesting about this program is it was a program that was offered only for students and graduates, and now we're opening it up to the public. And we've redeveloped the program. And one of the things I can tell you is there's a very large focus in this program on effective leadership and teamwork for virtual teams. So we're really going to have a focus on that because I do think that is important for leaders, emerging leaders, existing leaders to know as we move forward. So it is a great course. I have a lot of fun things. I have great speakers coming. It's a 10-week course. It's very cost effective. If you are thinking about it, and I definitely think everybody who is a leader will get something out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and group discounts are available for that as well. So please email me, which I'll give you my email here in just one moment to learn more about that. Just again, the webinar series will continue starting again. We're going to take a little break, but we will pick up again on July 15th, and we have 3 straight weeks of content for you. So please do join us then. And at that time, I should have additional August and September webinars up and available for you as well. And finally, thank you so much, all of you, for coming. Again, you will receive this presentation in your inbox in the next week to 10 days with the presentation once we get this uploaded and onto our YouTube channel. And we hope to see you in the next webinar as well. Again, if you would like to reach out, spmcdonald@ucsd.edu, or as Eli said, eli@eliblair.com. So we will see you all soon. Thank you again. Enjoy your day.
Thank you so much, everybody.